Welcome friends, and this guide will be all about ground vehicles. I'll tell you what they are used for, how to use them best, and what you should equip with these vehicles depending on playstyles you have. But before we get into all that, I want to explain you how works different items you can equip for your vehicles, because most of the vehicles share the same thing. And so let's start with utility. Remember that mostly in utility slot you'll equip items you can engage yourself at will, but of course there are some passive ones which work constantly. And so the first tool is IR Smoke. This utility disrupts enemy lock-on on your vehicle by dispatching a whole cloud of smoke. Remember that this smoke is just for effect, and normal smoke will still allow enemies to lock on other vehicles. This smoke of course blocks enemies' vision, so if you have a bunch of teammates behind you, they will also become more or less invisible to enemy from that perspective view. Besides that, you can act like a ninja, deploy your smoke and get away. The next utility is Scout Radar. Well, there actually are two different types of radars. There's simple radar and there's Scout Radar. Keep in mind that Scout Radar will be cheaper and definitely will have bigger range. Either way, both Scout Radar or normal radar will definitely reveal enemies that are moving in certain area around you. So if they are not moving, they will not show up on minimap. Also remember, if you exit the vehicle or there are no friendlies that are sitting in your vehicle, this radar will not work. So no more radar flashes that will work by just placing them somewhere in the map. And overall, radar will work constantly while you are in the vehicle. It does not require you to press any buttons, it will work always. Moving on to the turbo, basically this is what you would expect it to be. This utility allows you to gain extra speed in short period of time. And of course, it will accelerate you much faster from the get-go. Moving on to the fire suppression. Basically this utility can be equipped for all the vehicles and works pretty much like Nanite Auto Repair system. It will repair your vehicle if it is damaged. But unlike Nanite Auto Repair system, fire suppression you must of course activate yourself and it works for only few seconds. Besides that, it will of course extinguish your vehicle if it's on fire. And so the next utility you cannot equip for all the vehicles, like Flash, and it's called Gate Shield Diffuser. This utility is activated by you and allows your vehicle to go through different kinds of shields. As expected, this utility does not last forever, so it runs out after few seconds and can be recharged in a little bit longer time. And yet, this utility is used for several tactics, like getting into amp stations straight away for A point to win alert or something else. Or maybe run with Harasser straight to the shields and basically ran over a lot of enemies, so to get easy kills. And so this is the last item on utility that is shared by several vehicles. But wait, there is of course defensive slot. And so as the first item on defensive slot I want to talk about is Nanite Auto Repair system. This system basically heals your vehicle while it's not being damaged. Depending on the level, it will kick in sooner or later, and of course will repair faster or slower. Next we have composite armor. Not all vehicles have composite armor. For example, Sunderer does not have composite armor, it has blockade armor. But the thing is, those things do pretty much the same thing. It protects your vehicle from different types of damage, for example flak damage, missile damage, or small arms damage, and so on and on. For tanks you will not find composite armor or blockade armor, you will find reinforced armor, which will reinforce different sides of your tanks. For example, reinforced top. For all tanks you can see on the battlefield, this thing can be equipped, and it will mean that when enemy is shooting on this tank's top, it will receive less damage than without this armor. Moving on, we have Mine Guard. This defensive unit will help your vehicle to survive if it runs into mines, or if somebody places mine and then detonates it. This is very useful for Sunderers, and I'll explain it later. Moving on, we have Vehicle Stealth. When you're driving an area, your vehicle is auto-detected in enemy's minimap. But with vehicle stealth, it will remain invisible unless you come closer to enemy, or in the last level of vehicle stealth, your vehicle is undetected until somebody spots it directly. Also, vehicle stealth delays enemies' lock-on on your vehicle. The greater the level of vehicle stealth, the longer time it will take for enemy to lock on. And so the last slot, which is pretty much similar to all the vehicles, is the performance slot. For this slot, all the vehicles have pretty much the same things available for them to equip. For some vehicles it's 2 slots, for others it's 3, but all the effects are pretty much the same. For Flash and Harasser it's 3 items you can equip, and for all the other vehicles there are 2 items to equip. So the first item is Scrapper Combat Chases, or for other vehicles besides Flash and Harasser it's known as Rival Chases. So this item improves your traction on the field, basically making you slide less. It also improves reverse speed, brakes, and turning. Also for Magrider this improves strafe speed. Next item we only have for Flash and Harasser. It's Surger Power Chases, which improves handling and allows you to climb steeper slopes. And the last but not least we have Racer Chases, which allows you to of course increase your acceleration and top speed. For each vehicle all these slots, all these items differ, so be sure to check out how much you'll get for each item before buying. So of course let's start with the smallest and the cheapest of the vehicles you can have, the Flash. It's also worth mentioning that if you max out Flash Bike's acquiring timer, you can spawn Flash after Flash after Flash without cooldown timer. By default, Flash can reach 75 km per hour, which is second fastest vehicle on the ground. Flash most commonly is used for transportation, but this doesn't mean that it can be used as offensive or defensive vehicle. Flash, as you might know, is equipable with one weapon. You can choose from Cobalt, which is strictly anti-infantry and can also damage soft targets like Flashes, Harassers or ESFs. This weapon actually sounds just like anti-infantry turret for engineer, and it actually deals the same damage. Overall, Cobalt is available for all vehicles out there to be equipped on one of the gunners or, in case of Flash, primary weapon, and costs only 100 certs. Next we have sorta counterpart of Cobalt, it's Basilisk, and basically it's the default weapon for all the other vehicles for their gunners. Basilisk is basically, in my opinion, the most balanced weapon in the game. It deals pretty much good damage against infantry, good damage against tanks, and all the other vehicles. So if you like balanced weapon which can shoot everything and damage everything, of course, choose this one. Oh yeah, in the case of Flash, this weapon costs 250 certs. I would not recommend you to equip Flash with Basilisk because there are better choices. And the next weapon is Fury, and this is the better choice I was talking about before. Although Fury costs 1000 certs, it's worth it, because this weapon shoots not simple bullets but explosive projectiles which can kill enemies, at least infantry, in 2 shots. And overall this weapon is great for hit and run attacks, either on Harasser or Flash equally, as well as on Sunderer. And so the last weapon for Flash is the Renegade. This is basically a shotgun, so overall it costs 1000 certs, and I would say that it's not worth the price, because after all you can get Fury for that and deal a lot more damage than by shotgun. Besides all that, there are 2 setups I want to share with you on the Flash. First one is the Infiltrator's hit and run build. Basically it's composed of 3 things. First one is of course Fury, as I said before, it's a really good weapon for hit and run attacks. Next we have Rat module, which is ability on utility slot for Infiltrator to use only, which is basically the same cloaking which you have on your Infiltrator but only on Flash, which you can use in different many ways. The last piece of this puzzle is Nanite Auto Repair System. So overall, Nanite Auto Repair System will ensure that you get healed if you get hit. Rat module of course will make you invisible, therefore harder to hit and harder to detect. And of course Fury is there for the damage. The next build is more or less a Scout Radar build. So obviously you will need your Scout Radar, Vehicle Stealth, and that's about it. Radar obviously for enemies detection, and the Vehicle Stealth for your invisibility on the minimap. Oh yeah, there is one tip I want to share with you when you're driving your Flash with the Fury. If you're driving in third person mode, you don't have to switch back to first person to actually start shooting, and precisely shooting of course. All you have to do is aim where your character's head is, and you're gonna hit that place pretty much dead on. And so let's move on to the Harasser. Basically, the Harasser and Flash share the same physics, and besides that, they pretty much work the same. Overall, I would say that all the utilities and the defensive slots and of course performance slots are the same for both vehicles. Overall, Harasser has 3 seats. One is for driver, one is for gunner, and the last one is the rumble seat, which is open seat for another passenger. Anyone who is sitting in this seat can use their tools and weapons. Also, Maxes can sit in this seat. Harasser's top speed is 90 kilometers per hour, so it's the fastest vehicle on the land. Most commonly, this vehicle is used as hit-and-run search machine, not only because this vehicle is fast and it's agile, but also because it can be equipped with different kinds of weapons, as well as Empire-specific gunner weapons, like Sauron or PPA, so it can be customized to take out pretty much everyone. As a default, this vehicle has Basilisk as a gunner weapon. And just like Flash, this vehicle can be equipped with Fury and Cobalt. Besides that, there are a few more weapons you can equip this vehicle with. First off, we have Bulldog. Basically, it's a Fury with bigger blast radius, bigger damage, slower fire rate, slower reload, and bigger clip. This weapon is basically made for artillery fire, but since it deals a lot of damage in big radius, I would say that it's pretty good for hit and run without stopping. When you're driving with Fury, well, the blast radius is smaller, therefore you need to hit your target dead on. But when you're shooting your Bulldog, you don't have to be that precise, therefore you don't have to stop. Besides that, Fury and the Bulldog both are pretty good against tanks. Especially when you put 2 Bulldogs on the Sunderer, you can be stronger than any lightning tank. Of course, if you hit all the time. Moving on, the Halberd. This weapon is meant to take out tanks or armored vehicles. It has one armor-piercing rocket in its clip and it travels pretty fast, but remember it has pretty big drop, so you have to compensate for it. Overall, this weapon is not bad against infantry, but definitely there are better weapons for that. This weapon is also equipable for Magrider only. Next we have Volker. This weapon, just like Basilisk, in my opinion is pretty balanced weapon. It deals mediocre damage against tanks, deals pretty good damage against infantry since it shoots really fast and has big clip, and of course against aircrafts it's the best in my opinion. As for Harasser, this weapon might not be the best choice. Next we have Ranger. This weapon is pretty much meant to take out aircrafts, not ground targets, due to the fact that it deals extra damage against aircrafts in a flak form. But I would say that Volker is a better choice for anti-air purpose, due to the fact it shoots faster and it has bigger DPS. Of course, I understand when you are shooting enemy aircraft with flak rounds, enemy's vision is being blocked, but still, I want to kill faster enemy instead of just blind him. So in my opinion, Ranger of all the weapons is the biggest shit. And the last 2 weapons are Empire specific weapons. Due to the fact I am extremely biased towards the Wanu sovereignty, Terrans and new conglomerates will receive no information about their weapons, as well as the fact that I don't play those 2 factions. And so the first weapon for Wanu sovereignty is the Photon PPA. It costs 250 certs and is extremely great against infantry. Although it has a slow projectile speed, it has big clip and deals pretty much the same damage Fury does. As well as keep in mind that this weapon shoots a little bit slower than Fury too. But nevertheless, when I'm using this weapon I can shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and forget about reloads. Although this thing might not be the best for hit and run tactics, for suppression purposes this is perfect. And the last weapon for Wanu sovereignty is the Sauron. This weapon costs 1000 certs and has 6 armor piercing projectiles in its clip. So overall this would be a great weapon for taking out tanks. But not so good against infantry, because you have to hit enemy twice before he dies. And so for added benefit, here's my recipe for hit and run Harasser. So let's start with utility. There are 2 good choices I would recommend you to look at. One is Gauge Shield Diffuser, which will allow you to get into bases quick in and out, and Turbo, which will allow you to start from 0 to 100 in really short period of time. I chose Turbo and I think it's the best choice after all. Next we have defensive slot. For that I would definitely recommend you to choose composite armor. If you have engineer, and well actually you should have engineer in your rumble seat or as a gunner, you will not have problems at fixing Therefore you must make your vehicle as tough as possible. That's where composite armor comes into play. As for performance slot, it's up to you to decide which one is best for you. I chose high speed chases because I like to get out of the places faster. And as a last ingredient, you need a good weapon. Usually people use Harasser with Fury, but I would recommend you to choose either Fury, Bulldog, PPA, or maybe Sauron. And so let's move on to the Sunderer. This vehicle is transport slash supply slash spawn vehicle. Reason for that is that this vehicle can be equipped with AMS, or Advanced Mobile Station, which allows your teammates to spawn from this vehicle in less time than normal spawn. About AMS I can say that this utility is a must buy straight away when you create your character. If you don't have it, I don't know where the hell you have been wasting your certs, but this is one thing that everyone must have. Because after all, being able to spawn your teammates in any place, well, almost any place, is really crucial to advance and attack on any base. I would go even so far as saying 99.9% of all players have this thing equipped at all times. Oh, almost forgot to inform you that Sunderer's top speed is 70 kilometers per hour. So let's go for defensive slot. For Sunderer there are 3 different and unusual options for you to choose from. Besides the standard items you can choose for other vehicles too. First is Nanite Proximity Repair, which will repair any vehicle that is damaged from your faction and is nearby that Sunderer. So you can have deployed Repair Sunday. Vehicle Ammo Dispenser, which will resupply nearby friendly vehicles with ammunition. And Blockade Armor, which will reduce incoming damage by at least 12% on the last level. Sunderer has 2 gunner seats, which can be customized by your preference. You can place any weapon, excluding Empire-specific ones. And so here is my recipe for a good AMS Sunderer. As for utility, of course you have to have AMS installed on it. For defense you can choose either Mind Guard or Blockade Armor. The reason to choose Mind Guard is quite simple. Any engineer with 2 mines can blow up Blockade Armor Sunday without a problem. But with Mind Guard you have to have more than just 3 mines to blow up one Sunday. So it's completely up to you to decide which one you will pick. As for performance slot, it's completely up to you to decide which one you like. Because when you deploy your Sunday, well, you don't really need that performance. And so let's move on to the weapons. It's up to you to decide whether you want to have more defense against infantry, tanks or aircraft, and you have to choose weapons accordingly. For example, Fury is mostly used against infantry, just like Bulldog. The difference is that Bulldog is cheaper, or you want something against air, in which case Walker comes in. Or you can stay with same old Basilisk, which is also a really good weapon. And so let's move on to the Lightning. So this is technically light tank, and its top speed is 70 kilometers per hour. In utility slot you'll only find 3 items: IR smoke, fire suppression and radar. But in defensive slot you'll find some reinforced armor, as well as nanite auto repair, vehicle stealth and mind guard. Overall, I would recommend you to use side reinforced armor. And of course in performance slot, just like any other vehicle besides Flash and Harasser, this one has rival and high speed chases. As for weapons, by default, Lightning has Viper. This weapon has 6 projectiles in its clip, and those projectiles deal, well, mediocre damage against everything. Although against tanks or armored vehicles, this weapon is one of the worst you can have for Lightning. I would say that Viper is more meant to take out infantry than tanks or aircrafts, but then again it deals quite handsome damage to aircrafts too. Besides Viper there are 3 Python weapons you can choose from. One is armor piercing, other one is high explosive, and the last one is heat, which is more or less middle ground between those two. So basically armor piercing round has of course big damage against armored vehicles and everything else, but it lacks explosive damage and the radius of explosion. On the other hand, high explosive round lacks the damage against armored targets, but it is extremely explosive in big range. And as I said before, the heat is the middle ground between those two. Besides that, it's also the cheapest. Lightning also can be transformed into anti-air vehicle, because it can be equipped with the Sky Guard, which is practically anti-air weapon. But due to the fact it shoots bullets, it can be also used as anti-infantry. Although accuracy with this weapon is not so great to have anti-infantry effect. And we come to MBT, or main battle tank. Being really biased, I will cover only Magrider. But technically all the other MBTs has the same thing. Differences in the performance, looks, and of course special ability. For Magrider, utility, defense, and performance slots are exactly the same as for Lightning, except for one utility item, which is Magburn, the special ability of Magrider. That is more or less, well, actually it's exactly like Turbo for Magrider, and that is a must buy in my opinion. Overall, Magrider is the most agile tank of all of them, but lacks the speed, because its top speed is only 50 kilometers per hour. Also, it's worth mentioning that Magrider, unlike other tanks, can strafe left and right, just like infantry unit. I would definitely recommend you to choose rival chassis for Magrider. As well as keep in mind that you have a gunner seat, so you can choose a good weapon for that too. As for primary weapon, Magrider has 3 weapons. The standard one, by default you get heat, or you can buy either armor piercing one or high explosive. It depends on your playstyle. Oh yes, right. Remember that if you hit tank or any other vehicle from the back, you will deal more damage. I recommend you to use your Magburn to get behind your enemy and blast his ass. Remember that Magrider will reach its full potential if you buy a good gunner weapon, that being usually Sauron or Photon PPA. Hellbird also is really nice choice. Remember that all the weapons, gunner weapons or primary weapons, can be equipped with thermal vision, which is really great at night, in day, whenever you are using it helps you to pick off enemies that are hard to see otherwise. And hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to rate it, comment it, and subscribe to my channel as always. And I see you, my friends, on the battlefield.